Zweig Group invites all AEC industry leaders to the 2024 AEC Small Business and Entrepreneurship Forum, the premier event for small firms in the AEC sector. Experience innovative strategies and insights on May 21st, crafted by Zweig Group's industry experts. Engage in keynotes and interactive sessions focused on recruitment, retention, and business growth. Join Zweig Group for this unique networking opportunity and take your business to new heights. Secure your spot today and be part of the AEC industry's future. Visit zweiggroup.com for more information. The Zweig Group team looks forward to welcoming you.
You're listening to a special edition Zweig Letter podcast, putting architectural, engineering, planning, and environmental consulting guru Mark Zweig and his team of experts straight talk in your ear. Mark has more than 30 years of experience helping AEP and environmental firms thrive, and these podcasts deliver his invaluable management, industry, client, and HR advice directly to you, free of charge. The Zweig Letter and the Zweig Letter podcasts let you develop professionally wherever you are.
Hey everyone, and thank you for joining Zweig Group Media and the Zweig Letter exclusive interview series. With 25 years of continuous coverage of the design industry, the Zweig Letter is a consistent source of valuable information in an ever-changing marketplace. We are bringing you some of the best and brightest minds that our industry has to offer. Today, I am pleased to welcome Ståle Fredlund Husby, co-founder and CEO of Relink, a VC-backed technology startup transforming how people identify their next job or employee base, based in Copenhagen, Denmark. Ståle, it's great to have you join us on the Zweig Letter interview series. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about Relink?
Yeah, sure. So first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on this podcast. Yeah,
no problem.
It's a pleasure to join you guys. So Relink, as you said, I mean, we're trying to kind of be a part of changing how people are matched with jobs and how people potentially also find their next jobs. And we're a small team of data scientists, engineers, and serial entrepreneurs based out of Copenhagen. In short, what we're trying to do is basically to apply, machine learning models, machine learning technology to help recruiters better understand, out of a pile of applicants or potential profiles, who is the better fit for the job and also why.
Okay.
So it's basically a process of trying to kind of spend less time on the issues and the tasks that machines are maybe as capable of doing, or a bit more capable of doing, and more time on the stuff that we still are best at as human beings, talking to people and evaluating people. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So essentially, you're not moving for the removal of recruiters at all. What you're moving towards is a better use of our time and an efficiency from a recruiting perspective.
Yeah, I think I think it was Harvey Nash that a few months back launched their new research, and I think one of the numbers, and please excuse me if I'm remembering the numbers incorrectly, but I think 40% of the respondents said that they thought that their job would be fully automated within 10 years.
Right.
And I think what that kind of reflects is a kind of some level of fair threat from machine learning technology.
Right.
Our perspective on that is, regardless of industry, we still haven't seen one job being totally replaced by machines.
Right.
So what we believe is that there's a lot of elements of any job, also recruiter's job, that kind of entails a lot of manual work, processing of data, and that is better done by machines. And at the end of that process, it basically means that you probably will be able to spend more time talking to people, doing the latest part of the recruitment rather than to put it on at its point, reading PDFs. Yeah.
Yeah. That's as a recruiter. I mean, obviously, I'm a director of recruiting here at Zweig Group, and from my perspective as a recruiter, the thing that I enjoy most is actually talking to people. The research is great, and that's part and parcel of what we do, and that's an extremely important part. But if I could just get to a place where I can actually talk to real people and know that I'm not just talking to anyone, but I'm talking to the right people for the right opportunity, it makes it an even better situation. I mean, I would that's a goal I think most recruiters have.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, and if and I think regardless of how competent you are within your domain, I think just by being a human being, there are limits to kind of the conceptual understanding we can have, and I think if you look at kind of the average time you spend on reading a CV and trying to make a decision if somebody is in or out or shortlist or longlist, it's like 35 to 55 seconds, and basically what you're doing cognitively is you're trying to kind of identify keywords that you know is or think is relevant to the position you have open.
Right.
And those 55 seconds, they add up to a lot of time if you hire 1,000 people a year. Yeah? And I think you should be spending more of that time, in interviews, doing that job instead of reading those CVs.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And that goes without saying. And I think it's going to be interesting too. I think CVs are going to take on a different form in the next few years. And I'm interested to see, I know there's been a move towards people creating videos for themselves. I mean, people consume information in a lot of different ways than just sitting around and reading a stack of papers. Yeah. And even in some jobs, people are rewarded for their creativity and the way that they present themselves to their potential employers. So it'll be interesting to see what a CV actually looks like in the next 3 to 5 years. So,
yeah, no, I think you're right. I think from our perspective, I think we're moving towards more like a conversational design.
Yeah.
In terms of how you kind of interact, as a company with a huge group of potential employees, and also as a potential employees with potentially a huge group of companies. And,
right.
And to some perspective, I think a kind of constant inflow of conversational driven data is probably also a better grounds for actually making a qualified decision
right.
On the candidate than a structured CV, because there's no job seekers that are experts on writing CVs. That's a challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what to highlight and what's the most important thing. So it has as a document, it has major limitations from our perspective. So I think you're.
Yeah, it does. It does. Well, listen, I had a chance to kind of peruse your website, and there was something I was really taken by. You mentioned on your website the following quote, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts about this. But you said, just like Netflix recommends movies based on the user's preferences, our technology, speaking of Relink, recommends people to jobs and jobs to people. We deliver this technology as a service. And I'm just curious as to what you see technology-wise in the recruiting space in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. It's a big question, really.
It is. I know.
No, and it's a super interesting question. I think we've obviously we work within the machine learning space, and obviously it's also natural for us to focus a lot on kind of the potential of replacing or strengthening some of the existing processes with kind of machine learning capabilities. What I believe, I think we're at like an inflection curve. I think we're at a point now where recruiters not only kind of accept, but really kind of start to kind of actively take a part in this change and actively kind of embrace the potential.
Yeah.
I think we will see a lot of stuff happening. It's like if you look at kind of the initial part of recruitment, there's so much exciting things. I mean, there's this MIT spin out that now does automated micro expression recognition, as a layer on top of video interviewing to kind of try to kind of detect, okay, so how does a candidate basically react to different types of questions, and and use that for some kind of cultural fit analysis. I think kind of in general, I think what we will see is that recruiters will be fueled with a lot of great tools that enable them to better understand, without the biased part of decision making, better understand kind of the core relevance and applicable, the core relevance and what is applicable of a person's background and knowledge and personality into a position. And I think a lot of that works around kind of how you harvest data from profiles. So we talked about conversational design. I think you will be in a position where you can interview thousands of people at once without really, and having a machine do that, right? Trained on answering the right questions for the right type of profiles and following up. And then somewhere in that line, you can step in as a human being when you've kind of gotten to a place where it's flagged and it's ready and it's relevant, basically. So what I think we'll see that machines will do a lot of the hard lifting, the heavy lifting. And then I think we'll still, we still have, machines don't have, consciousness the same way we do. Yeah.
Right.
So
right.
With the end of the day, it's like people hiring people, and it will still be people hiring people, I think. But we'll see a lot of the manual, repetitive tasks replaced, I think, by technology.
Yeah. I think that's one of the fears that some people have, is that people will totally be replaced in the equation of recruiting, and that, some machine will choose you for a job and that will be the end of it. And I think that, there's certainly going to be a fine line there, but as you and I were talking about earlier, it's going to be hard to replace the human element in the recruiting process. It's almost impossible, because again, you're still going to be working with people, and people have to judge, who's the right fit and who isn't. But certainly a computer can take away some of the guesswork that we normally run into as human beings when trying to decide if a person's right for an organization.
Yeah, and I think it's both an aspect of understanding what is right. So understanding kind of what is actually relevant, both in terms of this position that I'm hiring for. I mean, quite often we see, at least in our use cases, we see recruiters kind of hiring for positions they don't really have a specific domain knowledge for.
Yeah.
Which makes it really hard to kind of evaluate the relevance of a candidate's educational background or whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry.
No worries.
But I think it's both an aspect of identifying what is kind of drivers for performance, and on the other side of that, identifying, okay, so how do I find these drivers of performance, of drivers of fit in the data that is somehow sent to you by a person.
Okay.
And that process, I think, will be highly automated going forward.
Yeah, no, I agree. So, well, to add fuel to the fire, I actually ran across, there was a recent Huffington Post article that was referred to you guys in there, and it was titled "Let the Machines Do the Learning" by Gregoris Kalai. And he says the following, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. The true beauty of technology is that it truly allows us to do more with less. Rewriting the plan of the world and changing long-held paradigms, machines are not going to take over the world. They will just shake up every conceivable aspect of it. While for the foreseeable future, deep learning machines will remain pattern recognition engines, the potential for them to learn and improve upon themselves is endless. Just talk about, because again, I know that there is not so much fear of this whole area, but I just think there's just the unknown. But why don't you talk about just the natural growth of AI or artificial intelligence and machine learning, especially as it pertains to recruiting, and especially in the space. And the reason why I bring this up, and one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you, is because in the design industry, when you think of the built environment, so engineers, architects, environmental consultants, planners, this industry, first of all, we're dealing with a very finite set of resources of people. And a lot of times our clients, or anybody out there in the design industry for that matter, have a hard time finding the quote unquote right people. And I just believe that a lot of what was talked about in this article, a lot of what you're doing is going to sift through that white noise and help people hyper focus on those that are most relevant for the types of roles and positions that need to be filled, especially in the design industry over the next 5 or 10 years or more.
Yeah.
So, but I'd love to get your thoughts just on that in terms of just how this technology is changing and how artificial intelligence and machine learning is going to play that role, play a big part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think firstly, I think what we see is that so there's a lot of buzzwords in this industry now. Yeah.
Right.
People talk about, in this article, deep learning. People talk about neural networks and artificial intelligence, and I think what's easy to forget when you read about all these buzzwords and people throw these terms around. I think what's easy to forget is where we're standing right now in terms of kind of capabilities on technology, and at least we as a company, we're quite focused on kind of saying that it's like we're not using AI, and I think the kind of the core definition of what artificial intelligence actually is probably it's a moving target.
Right.
When the machine beat Kasparov, the chess player, people talked about that as some kind of artificial intelligence, and maybe today we talk more about that as a machine that was actually programmed to do that one really specific task, and programmed based on looking at and reading thousands of other chess plays, and by that understanding how you should move. And I think that also reflects a lot on the technologies that we see in play today. I mean, it's basically machine learning models that is applied on a quite specific use case. Our use case is there's a job description and there's some kind of information related to a profile, and the use case that our machine is being traced on specifically is understanding what is the relevance of that profile to this job.
Okay.
And you can train machines on those specific use cases as long as you're able to kind of feed them with a lot of historical data, so they understand based on that data, they understand what kind of predict going forward what would be the right decision basically. But going from there to kind of talking about like today they call it general artificial intelligence. Yeah, going to a system that actually kind of can learn on its own and become conscious. Mm-hmm. I think it's a long stretch. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's just important to remember that when companies talk about AI, especially in production, it's typically like advanced automation or machine learning. But with advanced automation and machine learning, you can do a lot of amazing stuff. I think, and the limits are indefinite within that space, as long as it's like a set use case, more or less.
Right.
I mean, what you're trying to, I mean, the basic aspect of, machine learning is, put people in front of this machine and do that a lot of times, and then tell the machine to try to learn based on what these people are doing,
right.
And then start to reproduce basically these decisions. And that is, in a context of a specific thing, that is extremely efficient, obviously.
Yeah.
I think the main kind of the main intelligent aspect or the main intelligence aspect of these machines. So take our technology as an example. What we're building is what we call a knowledge graph, or it's called like a big wiki of that tells us kind of what's the association between entities relevant to a job, like relevant skills and relevant experience and educations. And what this ontology is able to do is it's able to learn based on new data. So as when there's a new profile going in, it looks at that profile and then it understands, changes maybe the relevance of a specific skill to a specific profile. So like containerized, and that's intelligent, because what this graph becomes then is like a super recruiter basically with domain knowledge across all domains or most of domains.
Right.
Trying to kind of reproduce the way I would look at a profile if I'm hiring a new sales manager, for example.
Okay.
then I would go through my mind and say, okay, so what do I know based on my background and my kind of understanding of that position? What do I know is relevant? And this knowledge graph, which you often find in these systems, this is basically, has that contextual understanding, just, in a hugely larger context than any, human mind can have. Yeah.
Right.
So I think what I'm saying is that there's a lot of stuff we can do with machine learning, and there's a lot of stuff we can do with advanced automation. But to see kind of real artificial intelligence in play within recruitment, I think we have to wait a few years.
Right.
And we might never get there because, again, as I said, it's a moving target.
Yeah.
So because, the engineers we have, they are their own biggest critics. Yeah. So for them to say that what we're building now or what we're using now is actually AI, it's a stretch, I think. So
right.
we might never even get to that point. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, and again, I know that you guys have started this process by creating two specific APIs that I'm aware of, Marlowe and Goodwin. Could you just quickly articulate how, these APIs kind of sit on top of an existing ATS or applicant tracking system, but how would Marlowe potentially be applicable to the people that might be listening to this podcast in the sense of what would it do for them in their own ATS?
Yeah, so if you're a recruiter, what Marlowe would do is as soon as you publish a new job, so you have a new vacancy, you publish that in your ATS,
mm-hmm.
and then kind of our machine would look at that job and basically kind of read what you've written and then add the information to that job based on what our knowledge graph or what our technology finds and knows is actually relevant. So there might be, an educational background that you haven't mentioned that we know is relevant, and then we add that as kind of as a search query, if you may.
Right.
And then, as the process goes, you source people or you get applicants to that job, and as soon as a profile goes into your pipeline, into your long list, the API looks at that profile and basically scores that profile across three criteria. So it scores the skill relevance of that profile, and it scores the relevance of the educational background.
Okay.
And then it also scores or kind of boils down all the elements of it related to experience and says this is kind of the relevant experience that this individual has related to the job.
Right.
So in many aspects, and that's both based on kind of the information that the candidate has given you, and also based on the information or the knowledge we have about that candidate from our ontology. So he or she might have worked as a sales manager, as an example again, and then we have an understanding of what skills he or she should have acquired
mm-hmm.
during that position and a confidence related to those skills. So we both kind of look at the data we get, and then we add information that, aims at giving you a better grounds for kind of making a decision.
Right. Okay.
So what you're getting is, so what we're aiming to do is basically reducing, as I said, reducing the time you spend on deciding who you interview and who you actually interact with as a recruiter, and who you don't interact with, more or less. Yeah.
So with all of the data points that Marlowe takes into consideration, is it able to overcome a really badly written job description? Because it seems like it kind of covers some of that because you add some of your own to the process. But I'm just curious, can that do that?
Yeah, I think one of the core challenges is that. And this is going to sound harsh, but I'm talking just as much to myself as to the listeners. And I think one of the core challenges is when I write a job description for a head of communications, as an example.
Yep.
I'm not a job description expert.
Right.
Which means that, and regardless how many job descriptions you've written, it's really difficult to kind of pinpoint exactly what is the most relevant.
Right.
And then you have, profiles, candidates that is trying to kind of basically boil down a whole life of experience into one piece, either an application or a CV, and these guys are not, or girls, they're not professional CV writers either.
Right. Right.
So I think, just to answer your question, yes, we just based on the job description and some understanding of industry and company stuff. So based on the title, we're able to understand a lot about what you should be looking for, and that's also the core. So we're basically trying to kind of take out all the fuss and basically leave kind of the key information in, and use that as let's call it a search query, but as a grounds for scoring people. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Wow. Yeah. I mean, there's so much to learn in this area, and I think there's still a lot of improvement that can be done on the HR/recruiting side of things. I mean, people change, and then they don't change at the same time. But the technology is constantly changing, I think, which is the interesting piece of it. So.
Yeah, but I think what is at least what we're seeing. I mean, we've been experimenting in this space since 2014, and I think and there's a lot of talk about recruiters kind of fighting this change, and at least our experience is quite the opposite. I feel like is that there's a huge interest in directly influencing. Mm-hmm. Because if you think about it, end of the day, our job, and we spend a lot of time, work shadowing, learning how you think when you look at a CV, because end of the day, that's our job.
Right. Right.
Our job is not to reinvent how you evaluate the CV. Our job is just to say, you spend your time better at the more important tasks, and the machine can read a lot more data a lot quicker. So the machine can do that task. And when we interact with these recruiters, what we see is like a real, interest in being a part of and influencing this let's call it like technical or technological, development in the industry. And I think that's really, really cool to see, because without that willingness to add, tools to the toolbox, it's really hard for companies such as us to kind of grow. Yeah.
Okay.
So. And that is, I would say, like, over the last 12 months, I've seen a dramatic change in kind of the attitude and openness towards, embracing new technologies. Obviously, it's inevitable, but it's also really good that that people see the potential, and that's also why I always kind of stress the fact that, next time, Harvey Nash asks you, you won't be replaced by a machine completely,
right?
within 10 years. I think it's a way of making making more of less, as you quoted from this article, and that's the pure essence of technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, that's extremely interesting stuff, and I was looking forward to this interview because I just wanted to gain some more knowledge and insight. I mean, you keep hearing, people throw around the words artificial intelligence and machine learning, but then they don't back it up with, well, this is really what it is, and this is what it looks like today, and this is what we think it might be tomorrow, because I don't know that anyone really knows what it's going to look like. And I think that's part of the interesting aspect of the way things are changing from a technical standpoint. So,
Yeah. I think you're right. I think the one thing we do know is that kind of the capabilities will increase, so we can do more and more with technology. But I think you're right. I think it's important to be a bit like sober in terms of which terms you use, and also a bit sober in terms of what the capabilities actually are right now.
Yeah.
Because I think all this AI talk is what creates kind of the fear,
right,
basically.
Right.
And at least from my perspective, we're not there yet.
Yeah. Let's get some more knowledge and not be so fearful. So, well, listen, Ståle, I want to ask you a couple of last questions as we close out. We're doing something a little different here now on the Zweig Letter interview series. We want to go deeper for our audience and learn who the real Ståle Husby is. And we have a couple of simple questions that we'll end our interview with, and hopefully we'll have some fun in the process.
Oh, you need more than a couple of questions.
No, it's just a few, because but I want to give folks an idea of who you are. But what was the last book that you read?
The last book that I read, I think it was Predictable Irrationality.
Oh, okay.
It's a book on behavioral economics.
Okay.
Super interesting. It basically talks about, us walking around feeling that, all our choices is driven by, a cognitive rational way of thinking.
Uh-huh.
But then it basically proves that it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a super interesting way of, and also, for building a business, obviously kind of trying to understand what is the drivers for decision making and how do you influence how do you listen to the market and build products based on that, and what are the drivers of the market. I think, understanding that there are a lot of irrational and subconscious drivers for decision making, probably more than there are rational and conscious, is quite interesting. So yeah, if you haven't read it,
I'll have predictable rationality. Who's the author?
It's a guy called Dan Arley, I think Dan Arley or something.
Okay, I'll look it up. I'll put that in the show notes for sure, so I can share that with everybody. So, and we'll give Dan a shout out. Where did you go on your last vacation?
So we're based in Copenhagen, but I'm actually from a town called Trondheim in Norway.
Okay,
quite far north.
Yep.
And my last vacation, I went with my two kids up and spent a week in the mountains skiing.
Wow.
On my cabin.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Oh, that's nice. So I guess since you're from Norway, you've seen the Northern Lights.
No, actually, this trip is funny you ask, because I'd never been that far north,
right.
and typically it doesn't get all the way down to where I grew up.
Yeah.
But this New Year's Eve, we were out again in the mountains. Yeah, and it's pitch dark except from the snow lighting up, and just as we were like firing up the fireworks I saw Northern Lights for the first time in my life.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was really far south. I don't. It's quite far north,
right.
But like for the Northern Light to get that far south is quite unique.
Yeah.
So that was my first time, and it was quite. Even though it was just like, small, it was quite spectacular.
Oh, that's awesome. That's exciting. That's exciting. So last question I have is if you could, and I don't know what you decide to watch, but here in the United States, everybody's hardcore into Netflix and things of that nature. Yeah. But if you could binge watch one TV series, old or new, what would it be?
That's a hard question. Yeah. So binge watch. So I have this. And I think you have to have to build, to be a founder and to build companies, you need to have a kind of an addictive personality.
Absolutely.
And I do as well. So watching series is like it's a hazardous sport for me because they're built for addictive personalities.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let me think. What was the last series I watched together with my wife? I think one of the few ones I've seen everything of is Dexter.
Oh yeah, okay,
yeah,
yes, I know Dexter. Yes, I do know Dexter. So I think I saw a season of Dexter, but it is a really good show. It's a very good show. So yeah,
we're trying to stay away from the really kind of the really addictive series because we don't really have time. Yeah, I have two small kids and a company to build and a wife to take care of. So.
Absolutely. No, I totally understand. I've got 3 kids, so I have to be mindful of what I watch because I have an addictive personality as well. So yeah, I have to pick and choose my battles. Man, yeah. Ståle, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us on the Zweig Letter interview series. We really, really appreciate it.
No, thank you. It's again, as I said, just the fact that people are interested in what we're doing, and so the pleasure is all mine, definitely.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
No, that's great. And listen, folks, as a reminder, all Zweig Group media programs like this one are available both in podcast and video format, free for download on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and YouTube, just to name a few places. We'd like to thank you for watching this in video or listening to the podcast by offering you a free copy of the Zweig Letter and a free subscription. Yes, you heard it right. A free subscription to Civil plus Structural Engineer magazine. Just visit freetzl.zweiggroup.com. A link to all of this information, including contact information for Ståle, will be in our show notes. So I certainly want to make sure you make yourself available to that. And we'd love it if you'd go to iTunes or wherever you tune into this show and give us a rating, preferably a 5-star rating, and share this link with a friend. Listen, I'm Randy Wilburn, and you've been listening to Zweig Group Media, part of Zweig Group. Remember, we exist to make you more successful. Bye for now.
Thanks for tuning in to this special edition Zweig Letter podcast. We hope that you can apply Mark's no-holds-barred advice to your daily professional life. For a free 6-week subscription of the Zweig Letter, please visit freetzl.zweiggroup.com to gain more wisdom and inspiration, in addition to information about leadership, finance, HR, and marketing your firm. Subscribe today.